I couldn't believe my ears when Karen called 911 accusing me of causing the deadly hazard in our suburb. Her voice echoed shrilly across the damaged yard as police sirens wailed in the distance. But to understand how we got here, I have to start from the beginning of this HOA nightmare. My name is Melissa and I am a 42-year-old freelance graphic designer who craved a peaceful life. 2 years ago I moved into Willow Creek Estates, a typical American suburban neighborhood governed by a strict HOA. The community looked idyllic with its perfectly trimmed hedges and uniform house colors that promised tranquility. I soon learned that Karen, the longtime president, turned the HOA into her own little dictatorship of rules. She thrived on the small power it gave her over every blade of grass and paint chip. Her first complaint arrived in my mailbox just 3 weeks after I unpacked my belongings. The letter politely but firmly demanded I change my mailbox color to the exact approved shade of beige. I sighed in annoyance but complied the very next weekend to keep the peace in my new home. However, Karen's inspections became more frequent and her emails more condescending with each passing month. She would cruise by in her white golf cart, peering into my yard like a self-appointed sheriff. Then the real trouble started when I noticed the large dying oak tree in the common area behind my house. Its branches were brittle and leaning dangerously close to my roof during every gust of wind. I immediately sent a detailed report with clear photos to the entire HOA board via email. Karen responded within hours, dismissing my concerns as overreactions and citing budget constraints as her excuse. At the next board meeting, the rooms smelled of cheap coffee and filled with residents shifting uncomfortably in their seats. I stood up calmly and explained the safety risks with facts and evidence from arborist recommendations I had gathered. Karen leaned back in her chair with a smug smile and cut me off mid-sentence. "Melissa dear, you always see problems where there are none," she said in her fake sweet voice. The other board members nodded along, afraid to challenge her authority in the small power structure. I sat down with my jaw clenched, but my expression remained polite and professional despite the rising anger inside. Over the following months, the tree's condition worsened visibly, with dead limbs hanging like swords over my property. Karen, meanwhile, ramped up her social attacks by spreading rumors at neighborhood gatherings about my negative attitude. I heard from a friend that she told the book club I was trying to undermine the entire community spirit. It hurt deeply to be isolated, but I refused to let it break me and kept my head high. After that last meeting, I switched to secretly recording every HOA interaction on my phone for my own protection. The night the storm hit, the wind howled fiercely, rattling my windows and sending chills down my spine. I was sitting in my living room working on a deadline when I heard the ominous creaking from outside. Suddenly, a tremendous crash shook the whole house as the tree came smashing through my roof with terrifying force. Splintered wood and glass flew everywhere while rain poured in, soaking my furniture and flooring instantly. My heart pounded wildly as I crawled under the heavy dining table to avoid falling debris. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and dialed 911, my voice surprisingly steady as I reported the emergency. The firefighters responded fast, their bright lights cutting through the stormy darkness as they assessed the destruction. I stood outside in the cold rain, wrapped in a blanket, feeling the wet chill seep into my bones. That's when Karen arrived dramatically in her golf cart, her hair perfectly styled despite the chaos around us. She pushed past the first responders and began pointing at me with accusatory fury in her eyes. "This homeowner neglected her responsibilities and caused this damage," she declared loudly for all to hear. The firefighters looked skeptical as Karen continued her tirade, blaming me for the HOA's failures. Then she dramatically pulled out her cell phone and dialed 911 right there in the pouring rain. "I need police here immediately," she shouted into the phone, her tone full of righteous indignation. She planted this evidence to sue the association, Karen claimed, without a shred of proof to back it up. The police arrived shortly after, their flashing lights illuminating the scene of destruction and tension. I took several deep breaths to stay calm and then presented my thick folder of documented evidence to the officers. They reviewed the emails and photos showing months of ignored warnings about the hazardous tree. Karen's face flushed with anger when she realized I had recordings of her dismissing the safety concerns. The next morning, the city building inspector arrived to officially evaluate the incident and assign responsibility. He confirmed the tree was HOA property and noted the multiple unreported complaints in the records. County authorities stepped in, launching an investigation into the association's blatant neglect of maintenance duties. I prepared thoroughly for the emergency board meeting called to address the growing crisis in our community. The community center was packed with curious residents eager to see how the drama would unfold that evening. Karen sat at the front with her usual confident posture, but I could see the sweat on her brow. I stood at the podium and methodically laid out my case with printed documents and audio playback. The room fell silent as my recording played Karen's voice laughing off the tree as a minor issue. Board members gasped audibly, realizing the liability they faced because of her power-hungry decisions. Karen jumped up, interrupting wildly, "Those recordings are edited and out of context, I swear to you all." Her voice cracked slightly as the other members began to turn against her in the heated discussion. The authorities had already cited the HOA for safety violations, forcing immediate changes to their operations. In a unanimous vote, the board stripped Karen of her president title, effective immediately that very night. She stormed out of the room, slamming the door so hard the walls seemed to vibrate with her rage. Over the next few weeks, the new board took charge and arranged full repairs to my home using HOA funds. The insurance company and authorities worked together to hold the association accountable for the serious consequences. Karen put her house on the market shortly after and left the neighborhood under a cloud of shame. Neighbors who once believed her rumors now brought over homemade meals and offered sincere apologies for their silence. I accepted them graciously, feeling a profound sense of relief as normalcy slowly returned to the streets. Sitting on my newly repaired porch, I breathe in the fresh suburban air without any lingering dread. The birds chirp peacefully now that the constant surveillance from Karen's golf cart is gone forever. It is darkly humorous how her obsession with trivial rules led to such a major real-world disaster. The neglect of that one tree exposed the deeper rot in her leadership and the system she controlled. In the end, the authorities' intervention brought justice and restored the peace I had always wanted here. Sometimes small-town power can corrupt absolutely, but truth and evidence have a way of winning out. I smile softly to myself, reflecting on how one falling tree toppled an entire empire of hypocrisy. The neighborhood is better now, with new leadership focused on actual safety rather than petty control. And I finally feel at home in the suburb that almost became my worst nightmare thanks to Karen.